Welcome, Rick. Where does this podcast find you today?
I'm in Times Square, New York, believe it or not.
Wonderful.
The first podcast of the year, actually.
Thank you so much for that amazing introduction. Definitely the first time that we have started our podcast with music. What a wonderful track that is. For folks
Yeah, it
who
was
are...
actually, it's kind of a request I had because Valentine's Day will be coming up in a few weeks after you release your podcast. So hopefully we'll get people that get them in the Valentine's mood as they listen to your podcast over the following weeks after it's released.
Love it. For our audience today who are just clicking into this episode, what can you expect to gain from our conversation today, Rick?
Well, I know that this is an action-based podcast, so I think what you might want to achieve is how anyone watching this podcast can contribute and be a part of what is really considered by many to be too good to be true, and yet at the same time the most significant cultural event of our time, and that is the Jazz for Peace benefit concert series, which has helped over 850 of the world's most outstanding causes, and how easy it is for you to be a part of it and to participate and make it happen and help us take the world from 0% funding for peace to 1%. And I think just that 1% with you people participating now who watch this show in the ways that I'm going to show you will make an unbelievable, unimaginable difference. Just that 1% of going from 0 to 1 and bringing funding for war then down from 100, where it is now, to 99. And you'd be surprised at how many of our world's problems we can address and solve.
You've spoken about how music is this universal language, and during times of conflict, times of war, political division, it can bridge times and create more healing. What do you mean by that?
Well, a lot of people, one thing I want to address is that we often don't do something because it wasn't suggested by so-and-so or such and such, when it could be the best suggestion of the day. I mean, there's a guy downstairs selling fruit, and if he came up with the best solution for something, I'd like to see the world go with it. Now, in 2002, Jazz for Peace had an idea to bring Israeli, Palestinian, and American musicians together at the United Nations and do a concert to show how we can get along. And not only that, but how we can create the foundation for us to solve a problem in the entire Middle East region that is now affecting our entire world. Of course, at the time, I guess because it was a bunch of musicians getting together, maybe we didn't give it the right credence and the right, address it in the right, volume of importance that it should have had. But as the years went on, I started to get letters from people, world leaders. When I performed in Chicago, I received a letter from Barack Obama, and he referenced my concert at the United Nations. And when I went to Kenya, Africa, I received a letter from the Prime Minister who referenced the United Nations. When I went to Florida, I received a letter from a member of Congress, et cetera, et cetera. And the letters are online. You can see them, actually. And here in New York, eventually I got a letter from the mayor after we started our benefit concert series. So my point is, I happen to have a good idea. Now we all know it was the right idea, and it was just little old me. And what I'm trying to say is little old me isn't any better than little old you watching this show. And you might have a dream or an idea in your community that you would like to see advanced. And that gives you enough will right there. You have enough will for Jazz for Peace to provide the way by helping that organization confirm a Jazz for Peace event at no cost to you and with funds already raised and in your account just before we've actually even started the process, the fundraising process, and the process to raise all of the other important sustainable aspects, whether it's sponsors, whether it's publicity and awareness, whether it's new and prestigious supporters, all these things that we call branches of an empowerment tree. And so I want you to not be afraid of this process and feel like it's above you or past you or whatever. It's worked for 850 others. In fact, I was on a podcast recently, and the woman was involved with India, and she was stunned, absolutely stunned, that one of our grant recipients is the Dalits of southern India. This is the lowest caste system in the world. She said, how did they do that? I said, to be honest with you, they shocked us. They followed our easy steps. They followed them just like the others, and they did it in the south of India, all the way in the south of India. So wherever you are, you're probably not anywhere near as far away as they are, and probably not as nearly as destitute as they are. And so what I'm saying is, this woman said, if they can get a grant from Jazz for Peace, anybody can. And that's why I like to stand by my statement that if you have the will, we have the way.
You wrote in your book, when we fill our souls up with creativity, artistry, and intelligence, we have a better chance at avoiding the behavior that leads to destruction. What did you mean when you wrote that?
Well, it's actually, you're right, it's in this book. And this book is insane because we stuck all kinds of fundraising things in here just in case somebody who wants to get a grant from Jazz for Peace has this book or gets a hold of this book, because now we can put you through the little steps. Most people get afraid of something because it looks too big and they're looking at a big thing. It's like if I was to look at a Beethoven sonata or an orchestral score, it would be overwhelming. But if I was your teacher and you were looking at a Mozart piano sonata or whatever, I wouldn't tell you to look at the whole thing. I would tell you to look at one measure. And now it doesn't look such a big deal because it's one measure. If you have this book, we will point to little pages of the process where you're at, and we'll tell you, we're just here. See that paragraph? That's all we're doing now, and we can do it. We can do that, See, if you sit down with a piano student and you say, well, you could play that one measure, can't you? He'll say, yeah, I can get that one measure. That's all we're going to do is get that one measure, and then we're going to move forward. Because once you do that, you find that it's not a big deal. If you're playing, listening to Beethoven, da 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 da, and you learn that, after a while you realize, wow, all of that is just da, 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 da. It's just all the same things varied all over the place. But if you learn that, you almost got the whole thing already. So that's what we try to do with you. And this statement that is now a famous quote, if you, like my name there, Rick DellaRatta, if you type that correctly and you put famous quote in Google, you'll see it on thousands of websites. But it only started by me saying it off the top of my head in a interview shortly after 9/11, because I wrote a poem on 9/11. I recited the poem at a jazz festival with 8,500 people, and the press contacted me to hear the poem. And while I was reciting the poem to them so they could put it in their article, all of a sudden I just happened to say off the top of my head, if we would just fill our souls up. Now think about it, folks. We fill our souls up with the greatest qualities that we already have, right? So us people we already have creativity. We all know it. We have humanity. We have intellectuality. We have, individuality. We have all these qualities. So all I said was, if we just fill our souls up with our greatest qualities, and I named a few of them, individual intellectuality, humanity, creativity, artistry, we will have a better chance at avoiding the behavior that leads to destruction. Now that's a fact. That's just a fact. But that got lifted, and that's bigger than my poem, because that's in, when you look on Google, you'll see it's in Russian, it's in Lithuanian, it's in Icelandic, it's in every famous quotes website of everywhere. But it's just me kind of talking common sense. And the fact of the matter is, you want to give yourself the best chance. So I even have to practice what I said myself, because I'm trying to navigate things. And I'm like, you know what? Let me embrace all these qualities when I go into this situation, so I'll have the best chance. And sure enough, you just never know where that little sliver of opening is to find a peaceful resolution or a way forward that is, going to benefit the greater good.
What inspired you to launch Jazz for Peace? Was there a specific moment or a person or something that happened in your life that gave you this idea? Where did it come from?
Well, long before Jazz for Peace, I was just, your run-of-the-mill everyday musician. I wouldn't say run-of-the-mill, because I studied at conservatory, and I, really put my life and my soul and my heart into it. I played every kind of music with every kind of band. But nevertheless, I was learning some important lessons, and that was, I don't care if I'm playing for country people out in the middle of the country, or people in the middle of the city, or young kids or old folks. Music breaks through any kind of culture of boundary that we have. Music transcends. And I saw myself transcending things with different types of music that I was playing. I mean, I'd go there with these people. I didn't know these people, and they wouldn't welcome me. They probably wouldn't know me from Adam or welcome me into their community. But here I was with my instrument and with a bunch of other guys, and we're playing songs that they like, and they just think we're the greatest thing since sliced bread. But, like I said, I couldn't have gotten in there. I couldn't have bribed my way into that if I didn't have my, if I wasn't the musician. So I realized that, maybe the musicians can play a role in bringing these people together. And actually, they have been throughout history. We're just not paying attention. And if you really want to see it, I saw this now when I was a kid. I used to go to the movie theater that showed because now you can see all kinds of things on the internet. But back then, you had to go to the cool movie theater in your city. And I was in Boston, and there was this movie theater that showed movies that nobody ever knew the name, nobody ever heard of. And so we thought it was cool. They must be really good. Otherwise, why would they be showing them at this cool place? So I went there once, and I saw a movie called The Song of the Weeping Camel. That's what they had on their big screen. I'm like, Song of the Weeping Camel. I don't know. These guys are cool. They must be. I'm gonna follow them. They must be something going on here. So I buy a ticket. I go into this Song of the Weeping Camel. The whole thing is filmed in Tibet, and it's these people, and the guy's up there filming their way of life, and he wants to make a movie about their way of life. And he's just it's almost like the first reality TV, because he's just filming them doing their thing, being them. So while he's filming them, they get into this crazy situation because they have a camel, and the camel's giving birth, and this guy's filming. Now this camel, an albino camel, comes out of the mother's womb or whatever. It's all white. And the mother is terrified, horrified, won't accept the albino camel. Now, maybe out in the wild, that would be a disaster, but these people, they need this camel to survive, because they need these camels to carry things and do stuff for them. So they need this camel. They don't want the mother's disinterest in the camel is not going to cut it for these people. So now they're like, no, we're keeping this camel alive. And they're feeding the camel themselves with a bottle. They have literally with a baby bottle. They're feeding the camel themselves. The mother wants nothing to do with it because it's an albino. The mother thinks she made a mistake. I don't know what's going on in the camel's mind. They can't. Now, what they start doing is almost like the cartoon, the Bugs Bunny. It's like the guy's trying to get the other guy, and the other guy's trying to get away. One thing happens after another, and they try to remedy this situation. So basically, they find that they are trying this. It's not working. They try this. They can't get the mother and the camel together. So at the end of the day, they say, well, that's it. We've got to go get the musician. And the guy's filming this. So now he changes the whole movie, is whole changing now. It's not about their way of life again. It's about this camel. And they get on their horses and he goes with them. And they ride for days and days and days because there's no trains to find the musician. And they find this musical healer guy. And they say, we got a problem and we need you. And he comes back with them. And this guy puts musical things around this camel, does all this setup. They bring the camel, the other camel's terrified, the baby. The mother wants nothing to do with it. The two forces bring them together. And this man with all of this stuff, they're resonating on the camel's body, all this stuff. He starts playing the violin for hours and hours and hours. And he plays for hours. And somehow the truth of the music and the humanity and the artistry and the intellectuality, somehow it comes through. And eventually the mother starts weeping uncontrollably. So the mother's just weeping and weeping and weeping. And the mother takes the camel as her own. And that's the end of it. So my point is, this has been going on forever. Music, they've had to bring in the musician. And unfortunately, this world, I had nothing to listen. I want you to listen to me 23 years ago. But now we have to bring in the musician. We just have to do it. I don't care if you credit me. I just want to solve the problem. And by helping outstanding causes, I already know that's going to solve the problem. If you go to a page on our website called jazzforpeace.wordpress.com/about, you won't see it. You won't hear any words by me, nothing. But you will hear the words of presidents, of prime ministers, of congressmen, of people all over who are supposed to be public servants, actually being public servants by telling you what they think about our benefit concerts and Jazz for Peace. Ralph Nader, Noam Chomsky. I mean, it's insane. You'll read those. And then the big part comes. You'll see a picture of a horse's mouth and you'll say, read it from the horse's mouth. And you'll see hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of actual organizations who we have helped in their words, their own. And every single one is different because they all say it their own way and they all say what happened to them and it was all different and every event was different. But you'll see it and that's at zero. That's at zero. So you'll be astounded at what we've done at zero. Astounded. You'll think it's too good to be true, except for one problem. Those are real people. Those are them. It's not me. And the thing is, all I want to do is multiply this to 1%. Because at 1%, the camel's going to start weeping.
Amazing. You had a performance that was really groundbreaking. I read about at the United Nations back in 2002. How did that come about? How did you pull that off? And what impact do you think it had on a global scale?
What happened basically was I had written the poem Jazz for Peace. I had recited the poem at a jazz festival with 8,500 people. And then that resonated from Savannah, Georgia, all the way back up here to New York. And then those promoters for that concert wanted to know if I was going to put it to music. And then I started the show off with that. Then the press came out. DellaRatta starts off with Jazz for Peace. So now I'm like, what am I going to do now? Because the press had just announced that this thing was happening from, I started the concert out with Jazz for Peace. So that became the first Jazz for Peace event. Well, what am I going to do? Well, I don't know what to do, but I'll, sometimes it will be revealed. So I start playing a few concerts around New York City and I call them Jazz for Peace concerts. I still don't know what to do, but I started to realize after a while that there's got to be a few outstanding causes. I mean, this is 18 million people in New York City. There's got to be about 13 or 14, maybe 20 outstanding causes. I'll play a few concerts for them. Maybe that'll wrap this thing up, And then I found out there was something like 80,000 registered 501c3 nonprofits just in New York City. And later, I found out there's millions all around the world. And there's an organization that wants to address every single problem known to mankind and many organizations. So the amount of good that we could do just by identifying the ones that are really sincere, because here's the thing, people who are really sincere about addressing and passionate about that cause, they're actually getting wealthy by doing it. So, someone might look at them and that crazy person, all he wants to do all day is clean that river or whatever, but actually he gets inner wealth. So there's a method to their badness, believe it or not. But let's not even worry about that. Let's find those people. And we found 850 of them. And those people, when we help them, we're helping everybody in their periphery, all the people that they're trying to help. Just by helping them, we're helping. So it's kind of a help those who are helping others type of thing. So that's when things really took off. But while I was getting all that underway and I didn't know what to do, again, I asked my manager, I said, listen, maybe you could call over to the United Nations. I mean, they're literally like straight down that way to the west, east, straight east of me almost. And you go walk across the island here and you get to the United Nations. I said, just call over there and tell them who I am, tell them my credentials, and just tell them that I'd like to do blah, blah. And of course, she looked at me like I was a little bit nuts. I said, do it in your spare time. And almost a year later, I had long forgotten about it. A year later, she's telling me about some things I have coming up. She says, look, you got this gig in Paris and you're going to play with, the guy from London that used to be in New York, going to play with him. You're going to play with this great drummer from, used to be driving cabins here, and now he's a big cheese in Paris. And then you and the drummer are going to go to Italy, and you're going to pick up an Italian bass player. And then from there, you're going to go to Luxembourg, and then someone's going to pick you up in a car and drive you. And then she's, and by the way, that United Nations things, they want to do that. And I was like, okay, well, thanks for lumping all that together. Because, the thing is like, I think it's a big deal, but I don't know what everybody else, I don't know what other people think. So it's just me thinking this. Anyway, I said, listen, if they want to do that, this is what you need to do. You need to have one Israeli musician and one Palestinian musician. What about I said, I don't care where the other musicians are from. I don't care if they're from Luxembourg. I don't care if they're from, what town are you in, Noah? Where are you at?
I'm in Portland, Oregon.
So I don't care if you're a guy from Portland down here. They can be anywhere. But one guy got to be Israeli. One guy's got to be Palestinian. That's got to have that. Because I figure, how many other chances am I going to get to do this, right? So I got to make the most of this. So sure enough, because I had played with Israelis and Palestinians before. I mean, nothing made any sense to me because there was no war going on. We were in a room and we're playing music, and these guys didn't seem to have any problem with each other. So I knew this was going to be fine. So anyway, we do that. We sent notices out to the press. We did everything. And I didn't think many of them showed up. I mean, as far as I was concerned, it looked to me like it was people that were within the United Nations already. Wasn't that many people who in my opinion. And even one guy came up to me and said, this is amazing what you're doing. Oh my God. I said, listen, buddy, I mean, if it's so amazing, where's CNN? Where are these people? Where is, he said, listen, he said, see those bleachers over there? I said, yeah. He said, if a bomb went off in those bleachers, this is what the guy told me, and people got killed, you'd get all the publicity you wanted. And I thought, isn't that sad? And we just kind of looked at each other and laughed. And I said, that's so sad. But nevertheless, I still thought it was a big thing. And so did the musicians, And so we have a page, jazzforpeace.org/UN. And you can see the musicians wrote letters and wrote things about, you can see, it's a whole page of stuff. And then you can see what people eventually said. So what happened was it started resonating really, really slow, and then as time went on, it kept picking up and picking up. An article came out in a magazine called Cadence that said, the something of the idea of Rick DellaRatta just keeps getting more important with each day's newspaper headlines. And it just kept, so now, unfortunately, because I failed to get these guys to address this issue when I wanted them to, it's in other words, it's one of those crazy things where the more they ignore what we did, the more relevant it becomes. That's the problem.
Right. And how do you see the role of music in healing the conflict today? Is there an opportunity to go back to the UN and do another event or partnership? Do you see that as a possibility or a goal in the future?
Well, that would be fine, but and honestly, we don't even need to, because now everyone who wants to know about the event can find out about it. And of course, almost all these podcasts ask me about it. But on top of that, because so many people know about us around the world and know that we did it, we were actually able to have a vote on a social media platform called LinkedIn, which, I mean, everyone complains that these social media platforms will shadow ban you and restrict you and censor you. And guess what? They will. But here was the problem for I guess, LinkedIn. This book was coming out. This book was stuck at Amazon. And in this book, there's 1,000 reasons why I want you to get this. But in this book was a lot of details about how peace was being censored. And in this book, we have documented proof that they're censoring peace. How are you going to get anywhere in this world censoring peace? It's impossible. So we had that, and somebody knew it because it was blocked at Amazon, and we were not getting the visibility that I knew the world was interested in on LinkedIn. All of a sudden, that got lifted, and people started looking at our posts while it's still locked at Amazon. Well, this book is still stuck over there. I'm looking at this crazy thing, and I said, if this surpasses 1 million, I'm going to document it because no one's going to believe me. No one will believe me. So it surpassed 1 million impressions in 1 week, Jazz for Peace posts. So that's 1 million people looking at us in 1 week. And then I was like, well, what happens? What's this vote thing that they have? They have a thing on LinkedIn. You could do a vote. The vote, you could put up a vote for 2 weeks. And I was like, I could put up a vote for Israeli Palestinians and run it for 2 weeks, and there's this many people looking at us. I mean, this is crazy. Let's see what the world thinks. So we have a page because we had been addressing it. People want us to solve this problem, and we have a thing where we took frequently asked questions. Israelis would write to us, Palestinians would write to us, and regular people who were concerned would write to us. And they would say, what about this? What about that? And we had 23 pages of frequently asked questions, all answered to their satisfaction. And we have it. It's called jazzforpeace.org. I believe it's called Conflict Resolution Q and then the and symbol and a.pdf. Yeah, if you put a / there and you put Conflict Resolution Q and A, but Q and then the and then a.pdf, you get to this page. And if you can't get to it, you can always email us, info@jazzforpeace.org. You can always email us there. And I can't find it. We'll make sure you find it. So people are looking at that, and guess what they're voting? They're voting 96% for and they want us for what we have to be implemented. I can't even get it looked at, but the world wants it not only looked at, but implemented because it's a solution. The Israelis and Palestinians both agree on our proposal. And so here's the other thing. Okay. Our proposal is based on the people that we really know, and that is the Jewish Holocaust victims, because we did concerts for them here in New York, and it was a concert for Holocaust survivors and the organization that takes care of them and that wanted to expand their services to help other elderly because of the aging population in general. And we did a concert for them. It was so successful, they asked us to do another one the following year. We came to do a second concert for them, and that was when we got a letter from Mayor Bloomberg that says, hey, this is crazy. This is incredible what you're doing. You got to keep doing this, Rick. I love what you're doing, all that kind of stuff. And that letter's online. But anyway, the Holocaust victims, they're the first ones to support our proposal. So in other words, we are so the Holocaust victim. So if you're not on board with the Holocaust victims, I don't care with what nationality you call yourself, you're out of touch. These are the people that we have to respect their wishes. They're victims of and survivors of the Holocaust. So our proposal, and 96% of people. So my point is, we're way beyond having to go back to the United Nations and play another concert. I'd love to play. I'll go over there and play 6 days a week. But we got this thing solved. We just need people to look at it. And not only that, I need our world leaders to acknowledge that, hey, not just me, but Noah, you might have a great idea. Let's get it heard. Let's let the cream rise to the top here so we can solve our world's problems and not waste all of our money on these wacky bombs.
Yes. So what is the opportunity for people who have ideas, or if I'm listening to our conversation right now and I'm thinking, I like what Rick is saying, I might want to get involved in this mission. How can I get involved? What are the steps that I could take, and how does it work?
The very first thing is just sending us an email at info@jazzforpeace.org with your comment, whatever that is. Believe it or not, a comment is viewed by our funding model as a seedling. So all of our events have come from a comment from somebody. I remember once a woman, she wrote to us, I've been looking at your program. I really love what you're doing, blah, 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 blah. And I said, well, what do you do? And she says, well, I have this organization that helps. This was a while back because this problem's already been solved, but it was a while back. She said, we have people she's Chinese, and she had people in the suburbs that would not educate the daughters because of this way it was set up. The daughters are not supposed, only the sons get educated. She wanted to give the daughters a chance to be educated. And we ended up we took her comment and we grew 4 empowerment trees all over the country because she had 4 different Chinese communities that were helping pay for the education for these kids because the parents wouldn't pay for it. So they said, listen, if your kid wants to get educated, if you have a daughter, we will pay for it. We have the funds. So we did 4 of them around the United States. But again, it all started from a comment from her. It could be, hey, I didn't even know of an outstanding cause. I just like what you're doing. We'll find a way to incorporate. We'll find a way to we'll get you involved. We'll get you involved at your level of comfort. That's the key. So anybody can get involved at their level of comfort. Sometimes it is someone who's affiliated with an outstanding cause. Sometimes it's someone who knows an outstanding or knows a friend with an outstanding cause. Or sometimes it's just somebody who's like, hey, you know what? I'd rather make it, work with you guys than try to save the world all by myself. I got a job. I'm tired when I get home, but I do want to see progress. Work with us because a little bit can go a long way. You can help us in a very small, it could even be attending event, coming to an event, being one of the VIPs at our event. I mean, there's so many ways you can get involved.
I read that you've worked to reintroduce jazz into the schools. And how do you think this younger generation connects with jazz today?
Wow, we have a page. I think you can go on YouTube and you can type music in the schools, type that music in the schools. And then I believe Rick DellaRatta, Jazz for Peace. Or Jazz for Peace, Rick DellaRatta, but try music in the schools and then try both of those names, my name and Jazz for Peace. You'll get to a video. The video is at a school in Massapequa, Long Island, where that comedian Jerry Seinfeld went when he was a little toddler. And he went to this school, and this school somehow got the thing that, well, we'd like all of our kids to be successful, like our Jerry Seinfeld, our young, our from here. And so they brought Jazz for Peace out there, and they said, we're going to bus in everybody from the other schools and watch it for yourself. I mean, I didn't know how excited the kids would be. I didn't know what they would do. And they look on the camera, the kids are like going crazy. So in other words, this jazz it's our own American art form, first of all, second of all, and it has the ability to affect people in a profoundly positive way. And that's the thing about our events. People say, oh, well, I'll put it in a fund where we'll raise even more money because we're going to pin the tail on the donkey and we're going to have this rich person come and blah, blah, blah. You know what? That's not going to affect somebody in a profoundly positive way. Jazz has the ability to do that. And if I just affected one kid in one of those thousands of kids that showed up in a profoundly positive way, you'd be surprised at what the result could be, because we've done historical precedent finding some people that claimed they were profoundly positive affected by the art form of jazz and then saw their achievements that were off the Richter scale. Charles Black is the name of a guy, actually, that's in our documentation, who he was at a dance or something, and Louis Armstrong just happened to be the trumpet player in the band, and he became fixated that man was a genius. If they had been playing records, this would have never happened, if it was a DJ or something. But he was watching Louis Armstrong play live. He decided that he knew that this was a genius. But now all the unanswered questions came, like, well, how come a genius can't even vote? How come this, how come that? And then he started again achieving all kinds of stuff. He's actually one of the authors of Brown versus the Board of Education and numerous other major things that came through Congress and positive movements in the government.
So we're just at the very start of 2025. Are there any partnerships that you're excited about? What does it look like in your mind's eye this year, 2025?
Something's going on. I think something's going on somehow, because I feel that there is a little bit of an aura. I mean, I was going through life mostly gaslighted, because if you look at the achievements of Jazz for Peace, and then you turn on what used to be a TV, but you'll never hear those words spoken by mainstream media. And it's you think yourself, well, I must not have done anything, because they seem to have all kinds of time to talk about, a parked car over here with a sign around it, somebody got shot or something, and they can't seem to say those words. So I was walking around completely gaslighted, which was kind of fine by me, because you see the people that are famous and you hear about, John Lennon getting shot by some crazy guy and all the kinds of messed up things happening to famous people. So I'm like, okay, that's fine if you want me. But the problem is, I don't even believe it myself. And then I would get on a podcast, and the podcaster would remind me, now you went to Pakistan and you flew in the middle of the night, and then you were in a car that was tinted, and you helped these kids that were their churches were being bombed. And, I did actually, thank you for, but so I think a little bit of that divide is getting bridged. And I think partially because this tipping point, I mean, unfortunately, you saw what happened with this CEO of a healthcare company. And that's not the way I want to go about it, but that was a reaction that I think people are finally looking for a way forward, to end some of these crazy disparagements that are going on in our society. And so maybe there's a chance that we can get our message out, at least to some people.
Mm-hmm.
I think it could be a game changer, a game-changing year.
Is there a opportunity that you have right now that you'd like to tell our audience about, something specific that people could do if they are interested in getting involved in the foundation? In the show notes, we'll have specific links. Is there an offer or an opportunity that you'd like to share with our audience?
One thing I would like to do is, if you could get this book, it's also available on Kindle. If you get this book and you write an email to us and mention Noah and mention this podcast, I will create an improvisation for you and send it to you by email that is entirely yours, and it is entirely unique, and it could never be repeated, because I don't even know what I'll be doing. Like I said, when I improvise, I just channel something through. So I could never, even I wouldn't be able to repeat what you have. And you'll have this unique recording that is just for you and only yours. And, it's almost like, if you bought a book, I mean, I'm not Picasso, but I'm just saying, I don't even know who I am. So that's for you to decide. But like, you buy, imagine if you bought a book from Picasso and he sent you a painting, you know what I mean? But that's what I'm going to do. If you mention Noah and you grab this book, just send me an email and I will send you this, and you'll be the only people that have these I'm hoping it'll be a collector's item someday. You're recording.
Wow, Rick, that's an amazing opportunity. So if you're listening to this, you should definitely take Rick up on this opportunity and get your own personal performance from Rick. You'd be crazy to miss out on that.
You will get that. Not only will you get that, but once you have this book, I'm pretty confident that you'll find a way to get some outstanding cause in your community, so we can help them. Because for us to get from 0 to 1, we got to help a lot of people. I mean, I probably got to raise at least $1 billion for peace to be funded at 1%. So folks, help us by helping someone else. So like I said, get this book, grab the recording, you'll have the book, you'll have the recording, and then I'm sure once you look in that book, you'll be able to say, hey, you know what? I've got to help this organization over here. They do amazing work and they're so underfunded.
Is there anything else that you'd like to share with our audience before we send off with some more music, if you're up for it? What else would you like to share with our audience?
One thing I'd like to share is perspective. It's really just looking at things at perspective, because, you know, I mean, there's funny, they've been interviewing some wealthy people, like they're billionaires or really rich people, and some of them that are very genuine will say, you know, you get rich and then you find out that money isn't really important to you. So you've got all this money, but then you find out, wait a minute, being a genuine human being is what's important to me. And now you shift to be something that you thought something else was more important, turned out it wasn't. And that relates to an old parable. It's about 2,000 years old. And the parable is called, the Old Man and His Horse. And what it is that this old man, the horse comes, he has a horse. One day the horse takes off on him, and his neighbor comes over and says, old man, I just want to tell you, I'm so sorry to hear that you lost your horse. And the old man says, who knows what is good news and what is bad? So the guy goes back, and 4 days later, the horse comes back with 3 other horses. So now he's got 4 horses. So the neighbor comes by and he says, hey, old man, I just wanted to congratulate you on the great news that you've got 4 horses now when you just had none. He said, who knows what is good news and what is bad? So now the guy goes home, and his son gets on one of the horses to try to break it in or whatever. The horse bucks him off. He smashes his head and his leg, and everything is about a broken leg and smashed all over the place. And he's in terrible pain. And it's 2,000 years ago, so they don't have painkillers. And he's in the other room, and he needs his son to help him with the field and all that. He's going to be out of commission. Guy comes over. Old man, I just want to say I'm so sorry for the tragic news that your son is out of commission. You don't even know if you're alive. He said, who knows what is good news and what is bad? 5 days after that, the government comes knocking on the door and says, we need all young, able-bodied men. The war has started. We've got to go to the war. We've got to take your son. I'm so sorry, old man, but this is the way it's got to be. He says, well, there's my son. Oh, we can't take him. I mean, look, he can't walk. How are we going to? We're going to have to take the other men. I'm sorry. We're going to leave you. Then they leave. All those young kids die in the war. And this guy's son is spared because of the terrible news. So the bottom line is, who knows what is good news and what is bad?
Wise words. Rick, thank you so much for our conversation today. It's been a real pleasure and honor to learn more about jazzforpeace.org. There it is. And in the show notes, there'll be some links so that you can get involved and reach out to Rick and his team to develop your partnership or to share your feedback with Rick if this is resonating with you today. And it's been such a pleasure getting to know more about what you're doing and how music can heal all the division and war that is happening in the world today. Rick, thank you so much.
My pleasure. So I'll kind of lead us out of this with a song called Star Eyes. It's an old song, and someone else had requested it, and I said, well, probably I'm going to do the Valentine one, but since now that we have another choice, so I'm going to make another volunteer happy at the same time here.
Love it.
Starrise, that to me is what your eyes are. Stars as soft as April skies are. Tell me someday you'll fulfill that promise of a thrill. Starrise, flashing eyes in which my hopes rise. Let me show you where my heart lies. Let me prove that it adores that loveliness of yours. All my life I've felt content to stars at the sky. Now I only wanna melt the stardust in your eyes. Starrise, but if ever will my lips this day for those eyes flow makes no difference who you are. Your eyes still hold my wishing star. Oh, starrise, how lovely you are. All my life I felt content to stars at the sky. Now I only wanna melt the stardust in your eyes. Starrise, when if ever will my lips know fears we for those eyes glow. Makes no difference where you are, your eyes still hold my wishing star. Oh, starrise, how lovely you are.
Rick, thank you so much. Really enjoyed having you on today. I hope you'll come back on the podcast again in the future. Really love what you're doing with your foundation, and I hope that this year is a great year of growth and bringing more people into your movement.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you for all that you do.
Yeah, and there's some great people out in Portland. We've been there quite a few times, so I hope we can get the podcast out to some people in your community as well.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. I'll look forward to your updates, in the coming weeks, etc.